Well, there's a lot of things happening in 2024. Well, it's a continuation of the Russian invasion in Ukraine, the situation in the Middle East, and also because of the American election, Mr. Trump is elected. But I think it is also very much of the year that the incumbent is under pressure. There are about 70 different elections at different countries, and most of them, the incumbents are facing very difficulties, like India, for example, then South Africa. Those even very authoritarian or very strong leadership is now undermined, and Japan as well. Having very much of the the minority government. So there are a lot of things happening, but there's one of the common theme is that the people are angry, people are frustrated, and therefore this anger and the frustration goes towards the incumbents. So that probably defines the characteristics of 2024. The climate change was, of course, has been problematic, but I think the world action towards the climate change accelerated since 1990s, and this is exactly the time of the globalization. So there was a coherent understanding of what the people and the country has to do. There are sort of a similar objective. This is becoming a global strategic objective. But today, the globalization as we know it is over, and the states are putting their interest beyond or in front of their strategic interest for the global common goods. So the countries are taking their own country first policies, and that is given the priorities. So the climate change, of course, some countries having a very strong demand for the climate change, like the countries in the South Pacific, but the country like United States or the oil-producing countries are gradually putting their interest ahead of the global goods. So I think what we need to do is to still maintain this, hold on to this value of having the climate change altogether, because that's not just a strategy, it's an existential issue. So the people have to think that, your short-term interest, national interest is not the answer to the long-term solution. So I think, I don't think we need to have a new rules, because new rules, it's getting harder and harder to make a new rules. But I think what we need to do is that those who are able to, bring them down, particularly those who are in the countries like in the United States or in oil-producing countries, to make sure that their countries or even the people taking actions to go beyond their own national interest and putting the global common interest ahead of their national ones. Of course, Japan is pretty much vulnerable to the natural disaster. They are increasing. The longer hours of the heat, the summer heat is extending. The average temperature in October, November is the highest in the history, and there are a lot more typhoons coming into Japan. So there are significant impact of the seemingly the change of climate. And I think Japanese as an island country is facing a lot of hazards by the sea level rise, and perhaps you remember the 2011 the earthquake brought a tsunami, and that made a significant damage. So climate change is an existential threat to Japan, but I think still the Japanese government as well as the companies are not taking a giant step ahead to change their policies. I think for Japan, there are a lot of things can be done, and one of which is very controversial, but the nuclear, restarting a nuclear power plants because of the 2011 Fukushima accident. There are very strong resistance for using nuclear power plants, but at the same time, these nuclear power plants, without the nuclear power plants, I think it is rather difficult to dramatically reduce the use of the fossil fuel. So we are facing that sort of a dilemma of whether we take the nuclear risk or the climate risk. So that's the kind of policy choice that we need to make. Well, I think in recent days, European Union, especially the European Commission, is gaining more power to take initiative for the security matters. For example, the sanctions against Russia has been led by the European Commission. And I think the European Commission is now stepping into the areas where traditionally the member states have held and controlled. But today, the European Union understands that it is more powerful to have the collective action altogether as one single entity. So I think the Commission has been already the leader of the climate change, and I think all the concepts and I think the values are already made it into the global standards. But I think the Commission can do more, especially with regard to the Chinese activities, because China, as one of the largest emitters of the greenhouse gases, I think the collaboration between China and European Union may have more stronger advantages to promote, and probably that would change the behavior of the United States, which is also another global emitter. So I think this sort of a strategic alliance with China, between China and the European Union, may change the whole dynamics of the structure of the national, the international power game on the climate change. Well, I think I am rather optimistic, because on the one hand, we are now threatened by the 2025 is going to be the year of Trump, and there are so much things have already said and discussed, but I think it is almost impossible to implement everything what Mr. Trump said. It is impossible. So there must be some sort of a realistic options or realistic compromise to what he says, and probably that gives us a kind of sense of comfort that it's not going to be too bad, or it's not going to be as bad as you imagine. So probably that makes us feel rather comfortable or optimistic of what's going to happen in 2025. And of course, there will be something bad happen, but I think it's not going to be as bad as we might think today.